Okay, we're back, we're live. This is Think Tech Friday specifically. This is our anchor show on technology. And Attila Sarres is the customary host, but he's not feeling well today, so I'm stepping in for him. My name is Jay Fidel. And the gentlemen at my left, your right, are, in order of appearance, Chris Robbins, he's the sales manager of Hawaii Islands Solar, and Gary Ralston, he's the CEO, founder, and chief bottle washer at Hawaii. He's the guy that makes it happen at Hawaii Islands Solar. And we're going to learn about that, but we're also going to address the principal question of a program we're doing on the 26th of September at the Plaza Club, right here in this building, with the Hawaii Venture Capital Association and the Energy Policy Forum called Solar in Hawaii. What's it going to be like in the long haul? Which is, I guess, the same kind of question. Is it sustainable? Let me tell you a little about that program. So this is a program, with three sponsors, three presenters, and sponsors specifically. The Plaza Club is a sponsor, but Hawaii Business Magazine is our principal sponsor. The University of Pacific New Media is a sponsor, and KMH LLP, an accounting firm, is a sponsor. And the speakers for that program are really something. We got Mike Gabbard, the chair of the Senate Energy Committee. We got Mike Champley, who is on the PUC, affects everybody in energy. We got Leslie Cole Brooks. She's the executive director of the Hawaii Solar Energy Association to moderate. We got Mark Duda of Revolusun, one of your competitors. Joe Saturnia of Island Pacific Energy, another competitor. You guys are, you're going to hear about all your competitors. Riley Saito of Sun Power, you're a mainland competitor who came here to compete with you. Okay, and Scott Siu from Hawaiian Electric Company. He's a man you should know.
Right.
I'm sure you do know.
Yeah.
It's really an incredible line. I'm sorry you're not on that, but I hope you come, because you'll see everybody.
Sure.
And you'll mend fences and do networking and find out, their answer to the question we're going to address today, and that is solar sustainable?
Yeah, working together is the best outcome of all of that, yes.
Yeah. So the first question is, tell us about your company, Hawaiian Islands Solar. What is it? When was it founded, Garrett?
Well, I had started solar in 1981 with...
I was only 12 at the time.
Yeah, I think it was 1812. But I started with a company called Solar Services and Installation, and began actually selling for them, and moved into installation shortly after that. Most of it was hot water at that time. This was back in '81.
Was Cully Judd in the business then?
Cully Judd was in the business in the late '70s, yeah.
Okay.
And when that company had run into trouble getting involved in commercial systems that they were not really familiar with, myself and three of the other guys started our own company called Hawaiian Islands Solar. It was a partnership, and eventually the rest of the partners dropped off. But we had our ups and downs over all those years. Tax credits coming in, tax credits going out.
Nobody knows
some
for sure
fat times, lean times. No, that's all depends on the political scene. Is solar sustainable? One of the questions that we're talking about right now is mainly up to those who have the power to decide and implement those policies that will guide us into a more sustainable future as far as getting independent from the fossil fuel use here in Hawaii.
So tell me the size of the company. Where do you fit on the hierarchy of, all the solar companies? The 300 solar companies. Are you number 1 or number 300?
Well, the solar companies ebb and tide with the flow of the way the business runs. We could get up to 40 or 50 people, or get down to 12 people.
So in a pool of labor.
Right. Labor.
I want to talk about that with you.
Labor, office people. Salesmen will drop in and out depending on how well or they can sell the system, or how difficult it is. If deals are just about falling into their lap, well, you know, they're doing great, and you can get just about anybody to sell, but the hardcore salesmen are the ones that will do the door knocking and sell and go through all the hard times as well.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to get rejected, you know. And if you're
well,
out there,
I started out selling, and I've been in situations where I've knocked on the door and the guy was really rude to me, so I went around to the back door and I told the guy at the back door that the guy in the front door was really rude to me. How's it back here? You know, I've tried a few things, but yeah.
So okay. So what is the special sauce, if I could ask, you know, that you're trying to, you know, brand yourself with in the marketplace? When you're knocking at the front door, the back door, what do you tell them about your company versus all the other companies on the list?
Well, we started out primarily as a hot water solar company. You know, I have a lot of experience in that, been doing that for 30 plus years. I've seen systems of all different types, and I still run into those same systems, and some people can't figure them out. Some people can't figure them out.
Don't say anything until you get a microphone.
Yeah.
That's where you went.
Some technicians can't figure them out, but I can figure out just about any hot water company that put in a system and figure out what's wrong with them, why they don't work, why they need to be repaired, serviced, or replaced. But
so it's experience, it's know-how.
It's experience and know-how. We try to do a quality job, knowing that you know, we're residents of Hawaii and in here for the long run, and want to you know, if we're going to see Mr. Okamoto in 1981, we want to see Mr. Okamoto in 2011 and say hi, and you know, at the grocery store or whatever.
You'll still be around.
Right.
Anything goes wrong 10, 20 years down the road, Mr. Okamoto can call you up. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
We've done what we could to keep our telephone number the same. That's very important. You know, a while back, Hawaiian Telephone would allow you to transfer your old telephone number to a new area, even though it wasn't in the same town. So it was easier now to keep your same phone number.
Important people remember that.
In 2006 or so, we saw that the PV photovoltaic market was coming on board, and we weren't going to miss that opportunity. So we started ordering pieces of equipment and starting to learn those items, and we did not want to wait until photovoltaics were booming before we figured out that this was a good thing to get into.
So you got in as soon as you saw it.
We wanted to know what we were doing when it started coming on board, and when we do that as well.
So how many installations a year do you do in solar hot water systems, and how many in PV systems, roughly?
That's a hard one. Last year we were doing maybe 3 or 4 systems a day.
Wow.
Various photovoltaic and hot water systems.
Wow, that's a lot. I mean, yeah. What sort of staff you need?
It was
to
booming
do
then.
Yeah. Well, you know, I don't know if you know. Oh, Marco Mangelsdorf is also on the panel. I forgot him. I'm sorry,
Big
Marco.
Island.
Yeah. Marco is, you know, a tremendous knowledge, a fount of knowledge about solar in Hawaii. He does research. He writes articles about it.
Yeah.
And one of the things he's talking about lately, and we had him on the show a couple of days ago, is that you know, 2012 was a great year. 2013 is not quite a great year. It's okay, but it's not, you know, and the trend seems to be maybe we're losing a little ground here. Do you agree with that?
Oh yes.
Why?
Permits are down for the last 4 months.
Yeah.
Well, you know, there was some rule changes, you know, with the Department of Taxation, and one thing that was good about that was that it clarified what exactly you could take in tax credits. That was one of the best things, rather than this, you know, very ambiguous, how many tax credits did you qualify for, and you got the tax preparers and people that do people's taxes wondering, well, how many taxes should I allow this person to take? If I do it wrong, am I going to get in trouble, and this kind of thing. Yeah. So now it's nice and clear. They don't quite get as many tax credits as they were last year because of these rule changes. But
a lot of people didn't like those rule changes, didn't think the rule changes were fair or reflected the practices that are going on in the solar industry.
Well, my position would be that if you're going to give a 35% tax credit, just give them a 35% tax credit on what a normal single-family house would cost to put in a PV system. For instance, if the normal size 3-bedroom Hawaii house costs something like $30,000 to put in a PV system, just give them 35% up to $30,000 and just make it straight across the board and simple. That way, if you have a very expensive Kahala house that they have swimming pools and waterfalls and they need a $60,000 system, well, that's that's paying for a lot of luxury items, and they'll get a tax credit up to $30,000, and the rest they can pay themselves.
Sure, that makes sense.
But for the most part, your typical Hawaii house would get a straight across the board 35% tax credit, similar to the way a solar hot water system is, where that tax credit pretty much covers the total price of a typical hot water system.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of complaining going on. It must be about a year ago when those rules came into effect by the tax department, and they were done without a lot of consultation with the industry, or with any of the stakeholders involved, and people thought that they're not fully informed when they made their rules. But and so last year there was no change. This past legislature there was no change in the law, and so right now it's with the encumbrance of those regulations by the tax office. It's on the way to sunsetting completely. The state credits anyway in the next couple of years. So, do you think that we need credits to sustain the industry? Or can we sustain the industry without credits after the sunset?
Well, I don't think that you necessarily would need credits to sustain the industry, but the industry would be quite small and very lackluster if you didn't have the credits. What we're trying to do is we're trying to remove this state out of the dependence of fossil fuels and get us on a sustainable path. And it's not just for financial reasons or independence from the state as far as a worldview or being dependent on shipping and all this kind of thing. We've got climate change and we have environmental issues. There's been a lot more issues now than when I first started solar. When I first started solar, it was just about saving money. That was it. Now it's climate change. It's being independent from
you were in the right
oil.
Industry. It sort of grew up around you.
Oh yeah, it has, and it's been quite amazing to see all the changes. And I always thought that it was a good idea getting into this industry. We had some tough times in the 80s. But we got back on track in the early 90s, and here we are. Jamming along here.
Here we are, trying to figure out what the future is. Well, for the moment, for the short term, the future is we're going to take a short break. We'll take a very short break. This is Think Tech Friday. I'm Jay Fidel. We have Gary Ralston and Chris Robbins of Hawaii Island Solar. And we're talking about whether the solar industry is sustainable, which is a big question that we will cover on September 26th at our program at the Plaza Club with the Hawaii Venture Capital Association and the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum. So we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back to continue this discussion.
Aloha, I'm Nicole Horry for Think Tech. For nearly half a century, the Hawaii Foreign Trade Zone No. 9 has brought the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone program to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs. DBET, the Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism, operates Hawaii's Foreign Trade Zone program to encourage international business and economic development. The Foreign Trade Zone's mission is to increase the amount of international trading activity in Hawaii, thereby providing employment opportunities for the residents of our island state. For more information, see ftz9.org. I'm Nicole Horry. Mahalo. Aloha.
Okay, we're back. We're live. This is Think Tech Friday. I'm here with Gary Ralston and Chris Robbins of Hawaiian Islands Solar. We're talking about whether solar is sustainable, and that's really the same question as we're addressing in the program with the Hawaii Venture Capital Association, which is called Solar in Hawaii, on September 26th at the Plaza Club. You want to come to that, check out hvca.org. Anyway, let's turn to you, Chris. From you, you're the sales manager of Hawaiian Islands Solar. So the question is, what's the market like in terms of the wishes of the people? I say, every industry is really a question of relationships. What are people thinking now? What kind of feedback, pushback are you getting from the public?
Well, there's still a lot of demand for solar. There's no doubt about it. And as Gary mentioned, there's always ebb and flow throughout the year. Some of that is seasonal. Some of that has to do with just the economy in general. How much you pay for your HECO bill every month. There's different variables that can drive that and cause some fluctuations. But there's definitely a lot of demand. We're still seeing just as much interest as we always did. One thing about this industry is every year it has tremendous growth, and so it's always tough just to match last year's growth. And as you were mentioning with the tax rule changes last year, there was a lot of people, I think, who jumped off the fence in the second part of the year particularly, and jumped into solar
because of the changes.
Because of the changes
they were worried
coming.
It wouldn't be so good.
And they were exactly
later,
right.
So they did it now.
And they were exactly right, because as of January 1st of this year, the tax changes did take effect. And that wasn't announced until November, but had been rumored and negotiated in the months leading up to that.
Yeah, so you don't see the same kind of rush at the end of this year, the last couple of months.
So we may not see that same rush, right, that we saw last year. I think last year was a little unusual in that sense.
Yeah.
But I think for the longer term picture, we're still moving in that direction.
Yeah.
There's going to be ups and downs as you go across the graph, but I think we're still moving in an upward direction.
Well, the solar industry has certainly, and I say solar, I mean both hot water solar and PV, because really it's the same companies doing it, just like you guys do both.
We do.
One is wedded to the other, and in fact, it's a good continuum for the public to follow the same way.
It's true.
But I just wonder, your observation of the changes that are taking place in the industry in terms of the competition. If there are, like 300 solar companies, how is that working? I mean, because a lot of solar companies all selling what is, one could say is a commodity. And that means you've got to elbow your way to the top somehow. How does that work right now?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. A few years ago, there was only 30 or 40 or so solar businesses here in Hawaii, and now, like you say, we're close to 300. So it's really changed quite a bit. It's been great working with Gary, who's been around since early 80s, 30 years in the business, and he's been through all the changes with the tax credits and the ups and downs of the business. A lot of these smaller companies who have just started in the last few years, the reality is that it's a statistic that most small businesses will fail during the first 5 years. And we've seen tremendous success stories with some of the larger solar companies that have done excellent during the last decade or so. I'm not sure that that's going to happen at this point where we have 300 companies now. I think it's a lot tougher for the startups now at this point. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some shake-up.
Into the industry now.
Exactly, to break in now.
Yeah.
This late in the game. I think the challenges are a lot more for them.
What are they?
Well, just because the pie is getting divided by so many more players. So even if we match last year's numbers plus do a little bit more, if you have a lot more people dividing the pie, everyone's getting a little less of it.
Well, another element and I'd like your thought about is that according to Marco Mangelsdorf, who, as I said, is very knowledgeable about it and goes out and he looks at the data, and he'll be talking at the data in our program on September 26th. There's a change in the priorities on the reports that he's made or found to show that some of the mainland companies who have come recently in the last couple of years have really taken the lunch of some of the local companies, and they move right to the top of the list. Huge volume. And I don't know how that works, but tell me your thoughts about it.
I'll be interested in hearing from the panel at that event. It's going to be a great event, so I'll be there. It's going to be very informative. From my view, I see a couple of things with these large mainland companies coming in. First of all, they're very aggressive in their sales tactics. They do an incredible amount of door knocking, and they're very aggressive on the sales front. In addition to that, they have a little different business model too. A lot of those companies that you're talking about are lease companies. And so with a lease company, the owner doesn't purchase the system, own the system, receive the energy during the life of the system, which in the case of PV could be 25 plus years. With a lease, typically you're on a month-to-month lease where you're having a monthly payment for that 20 plus years or during the term of your lease. Or if you're on a prepay system, then you're still making a big upfront cost investment. Not quite as much as purchasing, but then you don't get the advantages of the tax credit. So it's a little different business model.
Yeah, it's like I was thinking that when Gary got into this, it was a sale of the equipment, period. Sell it, and the guy uses it, and you show him, you have a spreadsheet, you show him how he's going to do
Save.
better because he has the equipment on his roof.
That's right.
Than the next guy. But now, it's like the bankers have gotten involved. The guys with the sharp pencils and the spreadsheets, and they have sort of slipped in there, and they offer a monthly payment, which is presumably less than what you would pay the utility
Right.
To get your power every month. And you don't have to, no fuss, no muss, no cash payment, no nothing. And that's what these mainland companies have come in with.
Yes.
And it's a very popular product.
Yes.
And it's interesting, too, that they're leading on-bill financing. They're ahead. Because on-bill financing, which the PUC
Right.
took a while to get around to, and in fact required further legislation to put it together, now that's going to be effective, I think, in January. That's what they hope, anyway. And that plus this mainland approach, I think it's going to change the way, because people always want to pay slow, don't they?
I agree. It will definitely make a big change. And I think that for the individual, like Gary was saying, where it's about how much is that individual going to save, it's smart for that individual to really think about their own unique individual circumstance, talk to their own financial advisor, their CPA, verify whether they're eligible for tax credits or not. If they're not eligible for tax credits, then I certainly think that leasing is a really good, viable opportunity.
But somebody's getting the tax credits anyway.
The leasing company is
So
doing it
if
instead of the
I'm
individual.
a consumer and I say to you, oh, you're getting the tax credits, I want the benefit of that. I want you to build that into your lease payment, because I know that you're going to get these tax credits.
Well, they do. They do.
Yeah, they should.
Yeah, they do.
It's always transparent. Everybody
and
knows.
that's part of the reason that I think that it's been very popular, Jay, is because we didn't really have the kind of financing in place until just the last year or two. So where you see the big rush is because it's kind of a new model. It's something serving an underserved market, if you think of it that way. But that's not to say that every individual is better off going with a lease. If they have a lot of taxable liability, then many times they're better off purchasing the system, getting the tax credits, and then they get the benefit of the energy that produces for the next 25
So
years.
those guys you were talking about with the pools in Kahala.
Right.
Wait, you're going to put your microphone back.
Well, they
You
also
get along with microphones.
not too good. They also, if you purchase your system outright, then you own your system, and you don't have to worry about other people having their fingers on your roof or in the pie, or someone you have to worry about.
Title at the Bureau of Conveyances.
Absolutely.
Sure. I mean, if you buy a system installed by a local contractor but paid for by a leasing company who's going to be collecting your payment, if they go out of business in 5 years, then what happens? Does someone come by and say, "Oh, we're here to take away your panels," or
Be a
what
bad
happens?
day.
Do you just
By repossession.
do you just keep your panels and things? I mean, there's probably lots of questions that people are a little bit uneasy about when they do a leasing job, because they have this 20-year something lease, and that means they have some relationship like you do with DirecTV or Hawaiian Tel or something similar to that.
But it's a long-term contractual obligation.
Lots
so
of times they would rather not have that kind of a relationship.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Right.
like whether you want to buy your car old-fashioned way by cash, put
Right.
it there, put the car there, you
Yeah,
know,
right.
or whether you want to have some kind of lease thing where you know they're making a spread on the lease.
Yeah.
It's not coming because they love you.
No.
So I mean, and the other thing
And
is
I
that
think there's room for both.
Yeah,
and
right.
I think that the individual has to make the determination which is best for them.
That's
and,
right.
And,
And
the
the
lease
individual
hasn't been
has to
around.
be very sophisticated.
That's true.
Because
That's
all
true.
these products have to be evaluated.
Right. That is true. And where I see the lease companies really coming on strong in the last couple of years is because there really wasn't that option before. So now there is. Now it's something new. So they're surging ahead. But that's not necessarily, in my point of view, indicative that the whole market is going that way.
We'll see.
It may or may not.
I agree with you. The jury's out.
Yeah.
Because these guys, they have taken, some top
absolutely.
positions on the chart.
But there was nothing for those people before. So now you have a product that serves them. So now,
Right.
now it's you really see them coming on.
These are the guys who don't have the money to buy it up front.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But really, for every individual, I think they have to look at their own individual circumstance and decide what is best for them. And I think there's room for both.
A lot of these newer companies that have come in, a lot of them are local companies, but they're electrical type companies, or they do alarm systems, or they do something, but they have a big customer base. And just like this microphone that won't stay on me.
We're going to implant that surgically, and so it'll stay there.
Yeah. Well, they have a big customer base, and so because people in Hawaii like to deal with someone they're familiar with, they have a good base to work off of to do solar PV systems. And if they see that there's this big boom going on in one industry or another, they're going to want to jump in and get some of that going on for themselves. So.
Well, one thing is, that you said earlier, Gary, it's provocative to me, and that is, I don't have a solar system, so you guys are free to sell me, okay?
I'll give you a good deal.
Okay, all right, okay, there you go. But one of the concerns that I would have is if I'm paying or getting into a contract to pay, because it's really the same thing, over a long period of time, I want to know that you're in business for a long period of time. I want to be able to call you up. Okay, and I can't know that for any company, even a mainland big company, although they may tell me they're institutional, I don't know that Chapter 11 is available to everyone. So,
absolutely.
I'm wondering when somebody is going to come up. It's just like the banks and the finance companies and the sharp pencils have devised all these credit terms that are now coming into the market. I'm wondering when somebody's going to come up with a warranty thing. I mean, a special warranty. Like when you buy a car, you can buy the car with the manufacturer's warranty, or you can buy the car with the manufacturer's warranty plus this other warranty that takes care of you, for a longer period of time in more ways.
Like a warranty company.
Exactly. I'm wondering when you guys or somebody in the industry or close to the industry is going to establish this kind of warranty company and give you, you're already doing it? What? Give me that look like you're already doing it, but you want to do it. If you want to do it, Gary, do it, okay?
Probably be a good idea to do.
Okay, on that note, but do you agree that it's coming?
Oh, warranties are a big part of the conversation that we have with every consumer, and we always recommend the products that have the best manufacturer warranties, and that's a big part of our selling proposition as well, is having been around 30 years, that we have been around, and nothing is guaranteed, but I think that says a lot, especially when we're up against some other companies that have only been around for a year or two and don't have too long.
A lot of those, and that
track
list of
record.
300, what did you say, there were 30 companies when you started? There's 270 more that popped up, so
Yes.
they're brand new.
One thing about paying for a warranty service, which is most likely what you would be signing a contract to do, is when we were doing mainly hot water systems back in the 80s and 90s, hot water system will save you somewhere between $50 and $80 a month, which is $600, $800 a month.
Yeah.
Now, that's the reason why you bought the system, and that's the savings that you're going to get. So you have to determine how much of that savings do you want to give back away.
Exactly.
For something like a warranty service. That's why we try to encourage our customers to just have a service maintenance done once every 5 or 6 years,
It's a better use of the money.
and not call us every 2 or 3 years to come and flush out your system or do this or that, because what you're doing is you're giving away your savings money that you bought the system That was the primary reason why you bought your system, was to keep this money. So you don't want to give out all this money on warranty contracts and service and stuff if you don't really need
That's
it.
true. That
And
is
you
a
might
good
get
point.
sucked into saying, oh, you need this and you need that, and it's going to cost you this much, and pretty soon you're giving away a quarter or a third of your savings every year to some company with some sheets of paper to have you sign.
You ever go to the store and they would sell you something for, say, $30 for maybe electronic gear, and you're there at the cash
Oh, yeah.
register. So, incidentally, we can give you the special warranty for another 10%.
Yeah.
You know, I never said yes yet.
No, I haven't either.
Have you said yes to any of that?
No, and the only reason I would even consider if it's a larger ticket item.
Exactly.
Right.
A
So
smaller
if I'm
ticket
spending
item.
30 grand for a PV installation,
Yeah,
then
it
maybe
could.
I start thinking about that.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's just a lot of change to have to
Yeah.
replace it. You know. Speaking of which, talking about warranties of the original equipment, you know, how do you know that a piece of equipment is going to last whatever the stated life is when no piece of equipment has lasted that long yet?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Well, as far as PV modules go, back in the early 80s, we would put in these small 15, 20 watt PV module boards to run a DC pump for the system rather than an AC 115 or 230 volt pump system. Well, those damn PV boards are still working. They can be 30, 35 years old, and we've got them at the shop. They're still working.
So you look at the elements and see how strong they are.
Well, just my own experience, PV modules, I can pretty much attest that they will last their 25, 30-year warranty, things that they say about them.
Yeah,
They'll
okay.
last. Now, you might have to replace an inverter or maybe some of the
But that's
electrical
easy. That's not
component.
gonna
Yeah, those
require
are
you to
usually
do
cheaper
an
items.
internal,
Yeah, your modules are the most expensive part of your system, and I'm pretty sure that when they're saying that they're going to give you a 25-year warranty, you can pretty much be sure that those PV modules will be, operating just fine.
Okay, we'll take a short break again. This is Think Tech Friday, and with me is Gary Ralston, the CEO, founder, and chief everything, troubleshooter at Hawaiian Islands Solar, and Chris Robbins, who's a sales manager at Hawaiian Islands Solar. And we're talking about whether solar, and I guess the title means, Attila Suarez set this up, so I guess the title means, is solar sustainable? He doesn't mean the equipment, he means the industry. So we need to get to that title question. But before we do, at the end of this break, I want to ask you about the technology, because this is ultimately a tech show. Okay, we'll take a short break. We'll be right back. We'll find out about technology and then sustainability.
Aloha, my name is Mike DeWert. I'm the Chief Scientist for ThinkTech Hawaii. I'm also on the board of the Hawaii Academy of Science, and I'm the Energy Chair for the Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party of Hawaii, amongst other things. Next week, on the 19th of September, I'm going to be doing a show with Jay. The topic will be how the 18th century had technology too. We'll talk about some of the technologies our ancestors had that we have forgotten and that we're going to need if civilization ever collapses. So, hope to see you then, and mahalo nui.
Hi, I'm Jay Fidel. Yes, this is Think Tech, broadcasting on Ustream and Spreaker both day and night, doing its thing on OC16 and Olelo, and uploading videos all over YouTube. Check us out and see the links on thinktechhawaii.com. Mahalo.
Definitely got the panels.
Yeah. and I suppose we should also talk about what technology deals with the utility concern about overtaxing the grid or oversupplying the grid.
Yeah, that's a little more complicated issue.
Well, it goes to
It's a very-
sustainability of the industry.
Very good question, yeah.
Because, they're
Yeah.
taking one kind of view of the
absolutely,
matter.
but I mean,
Now they seem to
we're
be
not
softening.
in control of that, exactly.
Say?
We're not exactly in control of that.
Nobody is.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody.
Yeah,
Not even Leslie Colbrooks. Nobody.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, we're back? We're back. We're live. Okay, we're here. This is Think Tech Talks. We're talking about whether solar is sustainable with Gary Ralston and Chris Robbins of Hawaiian Islands Solar. And we're talking about, first, the technology. You want to talk about the panels and how the panels are doing these days and how different they are from, say, 5 years ago or, say, in 2006 when you got into this in earnest. And what other technologies come to play to make these installations easier, better, more long-lasting, more efficient, and so forth. What do you think?
Well, when we first started looking at equipment, and this is not even that long ago, 2006 or so, we started bringing in inverters and modules and looking to see, you know, what the manufacturer expected as far as, you know, installing these things. And there was a lot of wiring that you had to do yourself. You had to open up the inverter box and you had to connect a wire here and a wire there and follow this whole plan. And nowadays, inverters come all pre-wired. You pretty much have just bring your line in and your lines out. Your modules, you had to put the little connectors on the ends of the wires and even open up the little box and wire those wires to the fastening box inside. And now those come all pre-wired with the little clips and connectors already pre-done, where just about everything you
Unless
do.
you're on the microphone.
Yeah, where everything you do is just plug and play, just about.
So is that okay? That makes it easier for the installer for sure.
Yes.
But does it give you a better product for the homeowner?
Absolutely, yeah. We've seen a big difference in the efficiency of all the panels too, and that's really driven down the cost per watt. When I got into solar back in 2008, I haven't been in it as long as Gary has.
Nobody has.
But
Except Cully Judd.
that's true. He's got us beat there. But when you look at the last few years, the increase in the wattage of the output of energy on the modules now, just compared to a couple years ago, it basically comparable cost, maybe even a little bit cheaper in some cases. So it's been incredible to see that. And then also developments in the inverters. You mentioned the inverters. Right. You know, it used to always be string inverters, which are still a good technology for certain types of property, but for a lot of residential properties where you have unparalleled roof lines, orientations, a lot of times using microinverters will get you better efficiency, have more flexibility in the design of the system.
Expensive?
It just gives you more design of the system. It can be a little more expensive, but you can get a lot more output. So it depends on the exact property and how you want to design the system for that specific property.
But wouldn't it be a good idea for me as the homeowner to go into this and say, you know, look, Chris, I want a system that's bulletproof. I want it to last. I want it to be reliable. I don't want to have to worry about it going down ever. So I don't know if that means the Cadillac, but it means the one that's bulletproof. Isn't that the right approach for me to take?
It is, and as Gary was saying, as far as the whole industry, it's been proven as very reliable over the years. To your question earlier about how can you tell for sure that one particular manufacturer is going to be able to meet their warranty of whether it's 20 years or 25 years or 30 years. There's modules coming out soon with 30-year warranty. No one really knows for sure, but based on what we've seen so far, they've been very durable, and the homeowner can definitely feel confident that their system's going to last for that period. And if some of the equipment doesn't last for the whole manufacturer warranty, then the homeowner has the ability to go back and get that replaced then.
You know, it's interesting that, remember, it must have been in around 2008, maybe before, when David Murdoch built a solar farm, a PV farm in Lanai. Big one, for those days.
Yeah.
And I could be wrong about this, but I think the panels were provided by Hitachi. Okay, in those days, Hitachi was making panels. I don't know if they still are. And they decided that the panels were not as good as they thought they were. So they came forward on a voluntary basis and said, we are going to replace these panels that don't seem to be working as efficiently as the other panels. And I thought that was very interesting. you know, that the manufacturer would not only stand behind it, but he would come like a recall. You know, he would come and say, well, "I'll fix it for you. You didn't know this, but I'm telling you, you need to have it fixed, and I will fix it." That was interesting.
One of the good things about a lot of the equipment now is they're very self-reporting, and this is what's
Right.
also driving
yeah.
the leasing companies, is because the equipment can report how much electricity they're producing, or even report if something is broken or went down. The leasing companies can then see, okay, well, it produced this much this month and this much that month, so we know how much to collect from you as far as you know, a homeowner with the system, as far as paying for that portion of the electricity, and you can pay, if you have a balance to Hawaiian Electric, pay that balance to Hawaiian Electric. So unlike a solar hot water system, which has no ability to report how much it saves, this makes it possible for the leasing companies to do this because they can prove what the system is producing. And it will also report if there's anything wrong with the system, so a homeowner can see that online and say, oh, I have an inverter that doesn't work, or a module that doesn't work, please come and change it out for me. And we get those calls rarely, but now and then, and we go out and take care of those.
If you talk about the technology, Jay, a lot of people can pull it up on their smartphone and see how much energy is being produced today by their PV system.
That's
they can
really
look at the last
wonderful.
7 days, they can look at the last year, they can see that there's more production during the summer months versus the winter months where it's a little
I'd
more
wanna know
cloudy
that.
and rainy. Sure,
I
absolutely.
know that, yeah.
Yeah, so you can really monitor it, and it's very easy to use, very easy to monitor.
You know, one piece of technology that is interesting, which will be actually rolled out, well, it's already been rolled out, but be more rolled out on September 26th at our program Solar in Hawaii, is the technology from Island Pacific Energy. That's Joe Saturnia. This is a battery pack,
Right.
and it's not very big. You know, I see maybe 3 by 4 by 3 deep, 2 cabinets, one for the electronics, one for the batteries, and this will give days of backup supply, even if the sun isn't shining. Quite interesting that anybody, and the reason I mentioned it to you, he said he was going to bring it, by the way, so we can all take a look.
I've seen pictures of it, yeah.
It's quite something.
Yeah, it is.
But the reason I mention it is I'm really wondering if you guys think that Hawaii, which is certainly a laboratory for solar, can ever devise, I mean, as an industrial, you know, as an industry, can ever devise technology to sell to the world. That's what Joe Saturnia is trying to do. This is a product which he thinks, you know, doesn't exist elsewhere, and he wants to sell it. But can we do that? Are you guys learning things, devising things, inventing best practices, you know, that could be used elsewhere?
Well, what we already have, I think that back in the 80s, you know, late 80s, we had switched out our mounting methods with stainless steel mounting bolts and aluminum frames, whereas we had been using regular steel bolts and wooden frames, which would just rot out, and when you re-roof or re-roofing, you'd have to replace the whole mounting system. Now you can use the same mounting system, and I think that started here in Hawaii. Some of these high-tech type of things like charge controllers and batteries, I don't know. That is pretty much a high-end, high-scale, intellectual type of products that need to come out. And even though Hawaii has come out with a lot of products and developments from the University of Hawaii, I'm not so sure if we've come up with too many other things in the solar industry. But having a modular type system where you have a battery box and you have a charge controller, electrical conditioning box to go with that, and it's all modular and can be easily loaded up and plugged in and turned on. That's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And then you have your battery backup when the power grid goes down. I have one at our house in Kailua where if the power goes out, our refrigerator stays on. We have a few lights and plugs that will work.
So you learn things.
Oh yeah.
And maybe we find that we have expertise, we have ideas, we have gadgets that were only experimental that actually can do it better. Maybe we become more than a laboratory for somebody else's technology. We become a laboratory for our own. I mean, I'd like to see that. But factoring in all the things we've talked about, you know, like the whole curtailment issue around the utility, can't take that much power, you know, doesn't have a grid smart enough to accept that much power. Got to have these studies, what do you call it, connection studies, and all that. There's a tension between the old and the new, between the renewable and the non-renewable, between the day and the night, if you will. There's many tensions happening here, and of course between the local companies and the mainland companies. How is this is the operative question here today? How is the solar industry going to do going forward? Will it stay at 300 members? Will it be more profitable? Less profitable? Will it be leaders or will it be followers? What's going to happen to it?
Those are all good questions. Very good questions.
Is it sustainable?
Is
And
it
to what
sustainable?
degree?
Well, you know, when we were doing hot water systems primarily in, let's say, 1985, we were faced with, we had federal tax credits of 40% and state tax credits of 10%. Now, that federal credit was set to expire at the end of 1985, which it did. The Reagan administration did not continue that tax credit, and we were left in January with a 10% state credit. Well, companies were already planning to get out of the business, and here they are giving out warranties to people, you know, on their purchase of solar. You know, you get a 10-year warranty on your solar panel and this and that, workmanship warranty, but they were forced to get out because they just could not sell the system without this tax credit. So, you know, just looking at that, you know, if we were a roofing company, we don't get subsidies, we don't get this or that. It's just straightforward business. But because we're in the solar industry, you have tax credits, you have incentives, you have leasing programs, you have all this stuff that is involved with our business. It's very hard for me to... Let me go again.
I'm going to get you a personal microphone with a sort of a special signature.
I'll just hold it. Well, because of all this, you know, it's not up to us so much, you know, except that we can try to do the best job we can. At HSEA, we do the best we
That's
can.
the Hawaii Solar Energy Association.
Right.
A trade and industry group, yeah.
Yes, and we try to do the best we can to formulate policy and work with our lawmakers to sustain the growth of the solar industry. But it ultimately is going to depend upon the lawmakers, the PUC, Hawaiian Electric, and who, you know, Blue Planet Foundation, Sierra Club, and various, you know, the people of Hawaii to, you know, whether or not we're going to, you know, sustain this in such a way where we can meet our renewable energy goals. And that's pretty much what we want to try to do here.
You know, the side of that question that interests me more than anything is that there are 300 companies and there are thousands of employees of installers who are presumably competent and make a living doing this. There's all kinds of expertise being gathered. We are a laboratory, if not the best laboratory in the world for this. People come from far and wide to see what we're doing.
Right.
They watch us, they think about us, they criticize us,
yes,
all that stuff. So, you know, it's become part of the landscape. It's an industry. It's maybe one of our most important industries. So it would seem that we shouldn't let it go. That seems silly to have all this happening and then let it go.
Sure.
So I guess what I would ask you is, do you feel that it can stay this big forever?
I do feel that there are two fundamental drivers that will make solar sustainable over the long term. So one is that the technology will keep getting better. And so we've seen that every year. And there's always some talk about what's the next big breakthrough. It doesn't really need the next big breakthrough. What it needs is what we've seen in the past, which is just incremental improvements year after year. So that will continue to make the systems better incrementally every year going forward. And then the other thing that will happen incrementally every year, in my opinion, is that energy costs will continue to rise. So as energy costs rise, your savings from that energy output of your solar system becomes more valuable. So those two are really sustainable pieces that will stay in place, in my opinion.
But it's an installation business, right? And I'm not saying you guys have reached a saturation point.
No,
I
we're
don't think
nowhere
you
near.
have.
No,
You're
not at all.
15% maybe, maybe less,
Yeah.
or statewide. Maybe that's all.
That's
wrong.
Sure,
even
sure.
even not even an accurate term to say saturation. Hawaiian Electric uses the term saturation at 15%. That's not saturation. 100% of Hawaii's electrical needs would be, to me, be saturation.
So it's a long way to go.
15% is just a level that they have dictated to be a point where there might be some review on whether they can handle more on that portion of that circuit of the grid or this or that. But that's not saturation.
But here's the thing. At some point,
Yeah.
you reach a goal.
Right.
So you want 50%, you want 90%, whatever you want. You reach the goal. And you have these 300 companies. What do you do with the 300 companies when you reach the goal? And you effectively, by some definition or another, you saturate. What then?
Well, I do think there'll be consolidation, but I think that the industry will still survive. And as Gary says, it's also dependent in part on the tax credits. That will help determine on how big the industry is or how small it is. But the industry will definitely survive.
When we started doing solar hot water systems in the late 70s, we've been doing this for a long time now, and we still don't have all the systems in place, and we're already going back and replacing systems that are 20, 25, 30 years.
So it's renewal of old systems.
Right,
Because
some of
they
it
don't
is that,
last forever,
yes.
and you can say it's going to last a long time, but not forever.
Right.
And it's not going to last as long, for example, as the property is going to last.
Right.
So you have to go back for more, and there's a whole new generation
Right.
in the pipeline after a certain point in time.
Yeah.
The other thing is, before we close, this government here, and the PUC is taking a more active role these days, it seems like. The governor is very interested. He's pushing the undersea cable now again, and very ardently. You have the two chairs of the two committees, Mike Gabbard, one of which will be at our program on September 26th. Chris Lee in the House. The consumer advocate who's going to be here at this table next Wednesday, Jeff Ono.
Yeah.
And I probably missed it, and the Energy Policy Forum in general, the Solar Energy Association, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
That's your camera over there, okay? And that's
Okay.
that's your camera, and that's your camera. So tell the people what you want to leave them with here today, okay? Okay, that one's yours. It's in there somewhere. There it is. Yeah.
I think that one's mine there.
Okay.
I'll just speak
All
into
right,
this
good,
camera.
okay.
Yes, I think that if Hawaiian Electric, the PUC, the governor's office, the senators and legislators, the people that are in the industry would work better together, discuss things more in more close forums, I think that we can achieve a lot of things and not waste any time if we all hear from each other and realize all the needs that each one of us need to find out and do for the ratepayer, because it's all about the ratepayers, it's all about the taxpayer, it's all about the consumer. It's not about the solar companies, it's not about the legislators, senators, or governor. It's what we need to do for the people of Hawaii, and I think that's what we should be doing right now, and finding the best solutions to achieve those goals.
You want to add something to that, Chris?
I think that was very eloquently
I
stated.
thought so too.
I think that's really the key, is having all the stakeholders come together, work in some sort of format, whether it's working groups or sitting around the table together. I think that's really the key, is coordinating all of the efforts.
This is a moment in history, isn't it? You know, the emergence of solar as the clear leader, at least popular leader, to the people of Hawaii. And what are we going to do about that? You know, good for you guys. Anyway, that's Gary Ralston and Chris Robbins of Hawaiian Island Solar here on Think Tech Friday, talking about whether the solar industry is sustainable, and coming up with a lot of good points about it. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you, Jay.
Appreciate it.
Aloha. We will see you. We will see you again on Monday at 2 o'clock for our next show on Think Tech Hawaii. Aloha.